show of worship to him. The way in which we act towards each other, the way we speak, the way we use our lives is a form of worship. So we want to talk about how we engage in that. Last week, we talked about engaging in this idea of sharing. That if you have come to the point where you have met Jesus in your life, it is really difficult to not share. You don't need to be, a trained scholar to share your witness to other people. So we wanted to talk about that. And today we're going to be talking about serving. How can we engage in service? But for many of you who have been here a lot, know what's coming for you who are visiting, we feel like in order for you to really open up and receive things, you have to laugh or smirk or roll your eyes, because I'm going to tell you a joke that's probably not funny. But that's okay, because that's just what we do here. So I heard the story of a group of kids who were in Sunday school, and they were all sitting, they were teaching about creation, and this little boy was really intent, especially on the way that Eve was made. He was focused in. And a couple weeks later, the teacher came out and noticed this little boy just lying on the floor. It looked like he was a little bit in pain, maybe sick. She asked him, "Johnny, what's wrong?" He goes, "I don't know, but I think I'm about to have a wife." You can take that one with you. Yeah, I got it from here. You're good. Anyway, none of that is related to what we're talking about today, but I think we have to have a laugh in order for ourselves to know it's okay to not be always too serious. Sometimes we got to acknowledge that we can laugh a little bit too. We are living in a culture and in a time where, for the most part, the world tells us to do something, and it's usually take care of yourself. If you just do your own thing, you'll be fine. Look after yourself first, do all these things. Even to the point where we don't mind if people are doing terrible things as long as they don't bother me with it. We'll say those things. Well, I don't really care as long as they don't bring that into my world, then we're fine, because it's all about my world. And this is kind of how we operate. It's a sad thing. It affects us in so many ways that even if you are, I'm going to speak to just certain people in this room, I guess, but if you are in social media, they are very smart with how you use your social media, that they actually feed you stuff that just fits what you like. Did you know that? You may think that you're looking at something that is completely a legit article, but it could be fake because someone knows that you like a lot of things that are in one direction, not the band, but it could be for you if you're that person. I'm speaking of for a lot of your kids. One direction. I know you're beautiful. Anyways, fine. But they feed you that because your world today is all about you. We've lost something in our humanity, and it's about the way in which we treat other people, and the way we serve other people, and the way we act towards other people. And we read that scripture earlier today, and we're going to do it again in a second, but there's the idea that Jesus wanted more for us in our lives, and if our world is telling us you'll be happy if you just take care of you, I want to kind of look at that hypothesis and call it for what it is, and it's a big lie that Satan gives for you. You will not find joy in just trying to take care of just you. You'll actually find a little more heartache because the world around you, if it's only involving you, it's hard to find peace and comfort in that. But when we focus our attention on others, and when we treat ourselves as less important than other people, you can find some fulfillment and some joy there. So the first topic I want us to look at, besides service, is this idea of who will be the greatest. It's really interesting that the disciples had all this time following Jesus, and yet still I don't know if they grasped really what they were doing. Because after a lot of serving, you would say, quote unquote, serving other people, that Jesus gave the ability to do all these things, that we would come to a point where they wanted to know who was going to be the greatest. I don't know about you, but if you are serving other people so that you can stake a claim that you may be the greatest, I just want to challenge you that you might be serving in the wrong way. But it goes even bigger than that in this story. So if you have your Bibles, we're going to be in Matthew chapter 20. It's the beginning of what we read scripture-wise. And I brought this scripture up a while back. And I viewed James and John's mom as like the Lonzo Ball of biblical times. Not Lonzo, LeVar Ball. That's the dad, right? Over some of your heads, too. I was told that my love language might be ESPN, because if you speak to me in a sports term, I will get it. So if you are that love language, guys out there, I give this to you. LeVar Ball advocates for his sons, even if they're terrible, that they are the greatest. And the sons of Zebedee's mom, they do the same thing. And she goes out to him and says, she came to Jesus with her sons. So think about that. One, if you've ever coached Little League, you've experienced this moment. If you've ever coached any youth sport, you have experienced this. It's where the mom or dad comes up and says, I need my son to get more playing time. No matter how terrible their kid is, or how good they are, how much they play, or how little they play, you will get this. And they will say, my son needs more time because he is so important. That's in their own words. That's not how they say it. That's kind of how it comes across. My son's more important than all these other kids. They need more time. James and John's mom did the same thing. They come up to Jesus, and she kneels down and asks a favor of him. I need you to do me something, Jesus. Like Jesus owes her a favor. What do you want? Grant that one of these two sons of mine may sit at your right hand and the other at your left in your kingdom. I don't care which way it goes. I just need one to be on your right and one to be on your left. I just need you to do me this solid. And if you do this for me, there usually has to be something after that. But Jesus kind of cuts off the rest of it and gives this little piece here. I don't know if I got it. I was not leading you forward here. You don't know what you're asking, Jesus said to them. Can you drink the cup I'm going to drink? We can, they answered. Which is what we would all say, because we all want to be great. And so whatever it's going to take for us to be great, we're going to say, of course we can. Of course we can. So Jesus said to them, you will indeed drink of my cup, but to sit at my right or left is not for me to grant. These places belong to those whom they have prepared, who are prepared by my Father. I think you just have your perspective wrong. I think you need to take a chill pill. Relax a little bit and go through the process and know that you are favored because you are following me. And you have a great job that is before you. And to worry about where you're sitting is going to negate what you are actually doing. And I think we get there. And I think sometimes we don't do this on purpose, but I think, in our subconscious, we will say some of these things like looking around and say, well, I know that I'm doing more than brother so-and-so or sister so-and-so, so I know at least I'm getting heaven before them. I don't know if you will say that for sure or not, but it makes you feel better about yourself. You might look around and just compare where you are at versus how you are doing versus other people. And if we're looking that way to get done what God has called us to do, we're not doing it because we love Him or we want to serve Him. We're doing it all for our own gain. And for our gain to be considered the greatest is the exact opposite of what Jesus wants for us. He challenges them later, and he says, because you got to realize, these two came with their mom. There's still 10 other guys. And I'm sure those 10 other guys want the same thing, but they aren't going to say it now. Now they're going to play the card. Oh, how dare they even do that? That's a shame. I'm embarrassed. They were so mad with the two brothers that Jesus called them all together, and he said, you know the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and the high officials exercise their authority over them? And this is the kicker, and this is what we need to focus on right here. But it's not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great, you must be a servant. And whoever wants to be first must be your slave. Just as the Son of Man did to come, he did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. We call ourselves Christians, and to be a Christian is to be Christ-like and to look at his example and try to live in a way that is, we can't be like him completely because we have sin. But we can strive to be like his example was for us. And if you look at what Jesus did for every person that he came across, he would either challenge them to grow in their spiritualness if you were like already someone who felt you were righteous. But those who came, he served them. He fed them. He healed them. For some, he was brought back from the dead. But the challenge is what he was giving to those people who were following him were, hey guys, if you want to be great, start by thinking of yourself less than you do now. Think about other people who are around you as greater. that you might be able to serve them and see the Lord in them and act like you are serving me when you serve them. Because that's what Jesus did for us. He came and he served us, the sinful group, because his Father called him to do that. And he was obedient to his Father, even to death, which leads to this, right? He gave his life as a ransom for many. We're called to have this in us, to serve, but Satan wants to trick you to think that what you do, like we said in the beginning, is to do for yourself. Just take care of you. Just do good enough for you. And if you do that, you'll be fine. You'll be okay. We get this example of like what servanthood looks like. So I kind of want to challenge us from looking at this idea that if we think about ourselves a little bit lesser than we kind of do now, we might be on the right track. But let's look at the example of what being a servant is. And Jesus gives us this beautiful example of servanthood. If you have your Bibles, it would be John chapter 13, verses 1 through 17. Now, this is an interesting thing because these guys are still struggling with this. They had just finished Passover. So they had just broken bread like we did earlier. This is kind of considered that Last Supper meal. And so what's really interesting for me to see, and I want you guys to look at this because we didn't have the pleasure of walking with Jesus, but we also have this great gift of time and history and scripture. So I think we almost have like a better heads up than they did because they took a lot of faith to believe that a guy was the Son of God. I just want to throw that out there. We might think it's easy. They follow Jesus. How did they not get this? But they're also following someone who's claiming to be the Son of God. And for the very first time this is happening, that would be kind of a challenge. So I want to give them a little bit of slack. But as they're sitting there and they just finished this meal, they start to almost bicker and fight amongst them about who's going to be the greatest to get. And they really don't get it. And Jesus shares something that is so powerful for them that I think it changes the way that they view themselves completely from here on out. So it says, it was just before the Passover festival, Jesus knew that the hour had come for him to leave this world and to go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. The evening meal was in progress, and the devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, and he took off his outer clothing, and he wrapped a towel around his waist. And after that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with a towel that was wrapped around him. I want to stop there just for a second. We're going to continue. Jesus already knew that his time was come. He already knew that he was going to be betrayed. He already knew that it was time for him to go from where he came from, which was from God. And he also knew that Satan had already put on Judas that he was going to be betrayed. When Jesus starts to wash feet, he doesn't just wash the feet of the ones that he likes or the ones that we're going to follow faithfully him. In this group of people, there's going to be someone who betrays him 3 times. There's going to be someone who betrays him to get him killed, and he washes their feet. And he serves them. Then he gets up after he starts hearing them bickering about who's going to be the greatest, and he walks over to where the servants would keep their gear to do this act of service to the group. And he takes off his outer robe, and he puts on his little servant robe, and he puts the towel around his waist, and he fills up a basin, and they have to be going, what is he doing? And then he brings the bowl over, and he starts washing their feet. I don't know about you, I don't necessarily like other people's feet. I think if you were going to serve somebody in the lowest way you can serve them, you would take off their dirty sandals that they've been walking around in all day and their gross feet and start washing them and drying them. I don't know if you could be any more, if you could serve somebody any more humbly than getting down on your hands and knees and washing their feet. And he starts to do this with each and every one of them. And they had to start going, what's going on? Why is he doing this? Is he teaching us something? Did we do something? What is... And then he gets to Simon, who I think most of us can relate to the impulsiveness of Simon. Maybe just me. He said, Lord, are you going to wash my feet? And Jesus replied, you do not realize now what I am doing, but later you will understand. And he said, no, you shall never wash my feet. And Jesus has to tell him, unless I wash you, you have no part with me. And he goes from 0 to 100 real quick. Okay. Well then, how about my hands and my head as well? I need it all. If you're gonna do it, just do the whole thing. Jesus answered, those who've had a bath need only to wash their feet. Their whole body is clean, and you are clean. But not every one of you. He knew that who was going to betray him. And that was why he said not every one of you was clean. So interesting, because one, just feeling Peter here, if you're going to do it, God, give me all together. Which means he wasn't really valuing himself like Jesus sees him too. I think we need to see that. And sometimes we need to see ourselves like Jesus sees us. He's like, no. I just need you to know that this is going to be important and you're going to get this. But for right now, you need this. Let me explain why. No, you don't need the whole lot. You're clean. Some of you. And I always struggled with this because I always thought for Judas how difficult it must have been knowing that you were chosen and Jesus knew that you were going to betray him. But the love for Jesus for him, even knowing that this was going to happen, just blows my heart up in a way that I have to reevaluate how I see other people. In your world, you're going to look around and you are already going to label people in your life people that you want nothing to do with. You're going to look at it, you're going to evaluate it based on your likes, your wants for your life, and you're going to usually go, I could do without seeing those people or that person specifically. And I think if you knew somebody in the room was going to kill you, you probably would avoid them. And you definitely wouldn't be like going out of your way to say, hey, let me wash your feet for you. Hey, person who I know is going to talk about me at work, I know you're sick. I could probably bring you some dinner that might help your family out. But you know what? I don't think you like me, so I'm going to not like you too. That's how we operate. That's what we want to do. Jesus is counter to the way we operate. And he gives us an example of what he wants for us in our lives. I had this really weird opportunity this past week. And I wanted to share it because it was the most odd thing I've ever done. I was sitting at home. It was a Friday. No, it was Thursday after, it was like 4 o'clock in the evening. And our phone system gets transferred to my cell phone. So I'm sitting there and I see that it's coming from our church. And I go, I'm going to pick this up. Hey, it's Gavin. And here is this voice of what sounds like a desperate woman who goes, hi, is this a church? And I go, yes, kind of, I guess. I was at home, but I was like, yes, it is. Do you guys do weddings? And I go, I have done weddings? Well, so there's this problem, and I need to get married. And it's gonna go, that's cool, let's talk about it. When? Tomorrow? And I go, well, tell me about this. And they had it all planned out that they were going to get married a certain way. And when it came to be, the people who were going to do it actually changed it. So they thought they were going to get married by a man at the courthouse, and it turned out it was going to be a woman, and culturally it just didn't fit for them, and all this stuff. And I go, okay, well, I was not planning on being around tomorrow. When do you think? And it just kind of worked out. I was like, I really want to help you with this. Let's see what we can do. So with less than 24 hours, we put together this wedding. And she told me where it was. And I think people sell things in a good way, and you don't realize it until you actually look it up. And she goes, yeah, we're just right off a pocket. I'm like, cool, right off a pocket. I know where that is. That's probably how you found us, 195. I was like, okay, cool. And then she gives me an address. I don't even look it up yet because it's just a whirlwind for me. I'm like, okay, let's talk about this. What do you want in this? How can we work this out? And then I look it up on the map, and I go, I know that neighborhood. That's not Pocket. If you know this area, if you're from out here, I talk about kind of where I grew up. It was like 3 blocks from where I grew up. And it was in this little tiny duplex in the middle of the ghetto. It was pretty awesome. Because I think if you were this family and you saw this bald white dude walking into your house, you might go, he's going to feel really uncomfortable. And this is the coolest experience because this family was more diverse than I ever experienced. So they wanted a Christian wedding. And I love, as I'm getting all this down, I have to remember how their names are. So I married a young woman named Charmaine, and her now husband's name was Kijana. And I'm thinking, I know exactly what I'm getting into here. This is going to be all right. I walk in, and this young man's mom and family were from India, and his dad was African American, and his future wife was, Hispanic with such stuff. And I'm in this little tiny duplex that maybe was 700 square feet, and we had 12 of us squeezed into this little tiny living room. And they were the most gracious and awesome and generous people. And I know how we feel about certain places and certain areas and certain things, and I know that they probably felt that same way. So they're like, yeah, we have family that lives right off of Pocket, and if you know Pocket area is not South Sac, and so you're like, all right, we can do this. And I start pulling up and I start driving down. I go, I live right there, and then I play baseball there. And I go, oh, this is going to be interesting. And it was the coolest experience to serve somebody in a way that most of us could have said, I'm not really that person, but I know somebody else who could do it for you. And this is how we really operate in life when we don't want to do something, or afraid to do something for somebody, or we don't really want to serve somebody, or all these different things. We would easily pass the buck to someone else. And we would say, in this case, I know a church that's right around you that is comfortable dealing with this situation, which really says, I'm afraid, I don't want to go there, so I'm going to find someone who might be more prepared or trained. And I want to challenge you in your life to step out of your comfort one time and just do something for someone that might be weird for you, because you might be blessed in a way that goes, I'm so glad I did that. They wanted to stuff me full of food as I left, and I was like, because I was leaving to go out of town, and this is why I was trying to make this work, and I go, I would love to stay. And they're like, okay, but before you leave, we need pictures, like I was family. I was like, hey, I'm hugging up on all these different people, and it was just for them in that moment, regardless of I don't know many people from India that are Christian, and it's just this whole deal. And but as I sat and talked with them and did all these things, I might have been for a moment in the weirdest, most random thing I've ever done, been a service of Christ for somebody that might plant a seed in the weirdest way for them. I had no idea. I sent them a message after I left saying, sorry I had to run from your wedding. I wish I could have stayed to eat some food. And I told them I was praying for their marriage, and if they needed anything from me to shoot me a call. But it was this cool, beautiful, sweet, really ramped up wedding in a tiny ghetto duplex with probably the most gracious people that they could have just been like, all right, cool, you're out. And it was fun. And we had an opportunity to serve. And that's just a weird thing. I don't know many of you are going to get a call saying, can you do my wedding? You might. But there might be somebody on the side of the road who's broke down, and you aren't in a hurry. You might be able to actually stop and say, hey, can I help you? I know that sounds dangerous sometimes, but sometimes you might be the biggest blessing that person may have ever had in their life. I remember one time just stopping on the side of the road. I saw this homeless couple that were there, and I was on my way to a Bible camp meeting, and I felt like, I'm on the way to a Christian meeting. Maybe I should actually act like a Christian. And I bought them some food, and they said for the first time in 3 weeks they had a hot meal. And you don't know this, and you won't ever know it unless you put yourself out there to serve somebody. And it's not to say, look at who is the greatest, because I've done two things, which I've probably had a million other opportunities to serve. But what it is to put your eyes out there for opportunity in your life, to be the arms and the feet of Jesus. And it might not even be that big of a service. It may be giving somebody a hug who's mourning instead of trying to fix their problem. Or to be an ear that listens. Anyway, so he says when he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. And he asked them a question. Do you understand what I've done for you? I love when Jesus asks the question. Because he didn't even let him answer. He says, you call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you should also wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. If we ever look at Jesus and we think of him as like, this is our bar, he knew that they saw that too. He said, I did this for you, and you know who I am. So you should be having no problem doing this for each other. Very truly, I tell you, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them. We can so easily come into a church and hear something and go, yes, cool, I like that. I'm going to tell my friends to watch that. And then leave and just go on doing your same old thing. These disciples could have done the same thing. Yeah, that was pretty cool. Jesus washed their feet. That was awesome. I'm going to tell other people that they should be washing other people's feet too. And then not do it. He says, you won't be truly blessed unless you take these things and do them. That's when you know you're going to be my follower. I want us to think about that. Lastly, I just want to share just this piece, because I know I'm just dragging on. There's one big thing that Jesus shares with us that I want us to really think about. Not just like, I could easily take you to the Great Commission. We could go out and make disciples and do all these things. But there's going to be a time where we're all going to come before the Lord and we're going to call on his name. And we know this because Scripture tells us that every knee is going to bow and every tongue is going to confess that he is Lord. And there are going to be some people who cry out, Lord, Lord, and Jesus is going to look at them and say, I don't even know who you are. And we may have spent our whole life thinking that we were knowing who Jesus is because we came in and we heard and we left. But he challenges us to do something with all that. And so, this is what he says. Then the king will say to those on his right, this is after he already says it, I'm going to have this group on the right, this group on the left. Okay. And the king will say to those on his right, come, you have blessed my Father, are blessed by my Father. Take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of this world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat, and I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me, and I was in prison, and you came to visit me. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you and thirsty and give you something to drink? And when did we see you as a stranger, invite you in, or needing clothes, and we clothed you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you? See, the righteous aren't saying, I'm doing this knowing that I'm purposely serving Jesus, because it would be really easy if Jesus was here and we saw him sick to say, do you need something? Because you're Jesus and I want to help you. But Jesus says, no. You did all these things for me. And I truly tell you, whatever you did for the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. He was rewarding those who were going out and heard the message that Jesus gave them and went out and did it in their lives. And he said, hey, you are blessed by my Father. There's rooms that are prepared for you. There's this inheritance that is ready for you. There's this great table feast that is ready for you to sit at. Come, let's enjoy that. Because you did some things that followed in my example. He didn't say, because you worked your way, you were given salvation. He said, no, there's a feast that's prepared for you. Come and enjoy it. Salvation comes from the Lord. What do you do when you know you're saved? You take care of the least of these. Because after that, he says to that same group, hey, when I was hungry, you didn't feed me. When I was sick, you didn't take care of me. When I needed clothes, you didn't do this. And they asked the same question, well, when did we see you this way? You've seen it, and you neglected it. And that's the challenge. And that's a challenge for us. Because you may have been seeing some of these things in your life, and you look past it because you don't have time to do it. It's not worth your time. They aren't worth your extra care. You have enough on your plate because it's all about you. I struggle with this, so I'm not pointing the finger. Sometimes we have to look past ourselves because we think we're so important. I want to challenge us with this. There's nothing after this slide except for a song. I want to leave you with that question. If we're engaging in service, will you be engaged in serving the least of these? My aunt in my family, on my dad's side, his oldest sister, is the Mother Teresa of our family. Not just because she's a very devout Catholic woman, but she has made her life calling to take care of people. She was a superintendent in Southern California. She was in charge of the curriculum and stuff like that. But before she took that job, during the Civil Rights Movement in the 60s, she desperately wanted to go and march with people. She was going to the University of Minnesota, And my grandma said, maybe not for you, because I don't want you to be in danger. And her whole life she thought of, I wasted a moment that I could have served people. So before she took her superintendent job in Southern California and all these things, she started working at a Navajo reservation because she had a heart for people who didn't have much. And she knew the talent that she was given would be blessed to give to those who people avoided to go help. So she went. And this is just like the beginning of her story. We went to Africa with her. She lived there. She went to South Africa to help her mourn the death of her husband, who she'd been married to for a long time. And she went on a safari, and the safari was great, but she went into all these black townships that apartheid had made into like the most poorest places you can see. And she had a heart for the kids that were being educated by teachers who weren't being paid, but they didn't want to leave the kids uneducated, so they just decided to teach without pay anyways. So she started a nonprofit to help these kids. And what she did, I'm gonna yell, leave that one out. What she did was, she decided that no matter who she was gonna serve, she knew she was serving the Lord. And so she just viewed it as, any face that I see is Jesus. Didn't matter how poor it was, or how dangerous the situation was, or how far off the beaten path it would make in her life. She just knew that if I viewed them as Jesus, then I would serve them. So I'm gonna ask that question, and we'll leave on that. Will you serve the least of these? We can start by looking around the people next to you. Would you serve them? Look at your own family. Would you take time when they need you to help them? We can start with baby steps and just get your mind thinking of the opportunity. Let's go together. And Father, Lord, you're an awesome, amazing God. We're so grateful that you love us and you give us an example that you would never ask us to do something that you wouldn't come here and do yourself. How amazing is it that you would take our form to come and be present with us, to know our struggles and our temptations, but you would do it without sin, and you would conquer death for us, and you would give us this opportunity to live an eternity for you, with you. But you call us to a standard of love and compassion that only comes from you. That Satan wants to put in the way, blocking our vision of seeing the needs that are in our world. And I just pray that you open our eyes and help us to be your hands and feet, to have a heart for your love and your kindness. And we pray all these things in your son's name, amen.